This chapter continues to investigate the vastness of popular music, this time in the 1970s. FM radio was now the standard for rock and other popular music listening, and it had turned into big business. In fact, it is in the 1970s where rock and roll becomes, in some instances, much more corporately controlled and manipulated. As in previous decades, rock music's evolution is a double-sided coin. One side contains vast diversity, while the other follows predictable formulas. The social and political elements of the 1960s counterculture still continue to influence the 1970s. The U.S. is still at war in Vietnam until 1975. An economic recession and oil embargo hit the country right around the time of the American bicentennial, and election of a new president, Jimmy Carter, in 1976. Music in the 1970s reflect many of the political and societal changes still occurring. Separate and fused styles, or subgenres, and previously underground genres develop. British blues pioneers like the Rolling Stones, Cream, and the Yardbirds paved the way for new bands to explore innovation in their respective styles. Led Zeppelin, formed by former Yardbird member Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones, John Bonham, and lead singer Robert Plant, put a new spin on British blues-based rock. Their hit, Whole Lotta Love, off their album Led Zeppelin II, contains some of what will become the sounds of heavy metal, with its insistent, low-range riff and pervasive hard rock sound. But the band members of Led Zeppelin did not like the term heavy metal applied to their entire body of work, since a full one-third of their music is acoustic. Their music encompasses many styles and is not an easy fit into one category. As rock became harder and harder, the term heavy metal was adopted in order to classify this new heavier sound. The American and Canadian band Steppenwolf's song Born to be Wild contains the lyric Heavy Metal Thunder, and its inclusion in the counterculture film Easy Rider in 1969 helped propel the song and the band into this new heavier rock category. Other bands experimenting with a blend of heavier rock and psychedelia are Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. Both bands are from England. In contrast to their British mates in Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath embraced the new heavy metal term, and are considered the godfathers of heavy metal. Sabbath took a concerted horror vibe approach with costuming, lyrical content, and overall sound. Additional fused styles from this time are Southern rock and country rock. Bands in this category, like the Allman Brothers Band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and the Eagles, fused musical traits of Southern and country music with the great storytelling inherent in these styles for a new blend of modernized music. Jazz rock also emerges during this time, displaying blends of jazz-inspired horn sections, complex jazz harmonies, and improvised virtuosic experimentation. Bands like Chicago and Blood, Sweat and Tears fused their rock sound with impressive horn sections. The bands Traffic and Steely Dan highlighted the virtuosity of their jazz-inspired music, and Frank Zappa held reign as one of the decade's ultimate experimenters. Of the fused styles in the 1970s, progressive rock has the closest ties to the 60s trip experience aesthetic. Progressive rock artists fused rock music with classical music elements. Some used classical instruments and orchestras. Others continued the concept album epic format previously introduced by bands like the Beatles and The Who. British bands tend to dominate this category with their highly ambitious music. Bands like King Crimson, Jethro Tull, Yes, Genesis, and Pink Floyd dominate this category, which is as diverse as rock itself. Glam rock and rock theater, which share similar over-the-top performance elements, also develop in the 1970s. British artist David Bowie, who performed and lived as the character Ziggy Stardust in the early 70s, helped define the term glam rock. Other 70s Brit glam rockers include T-Rex, and to some extent even Freddie Mercury of the band Queen, at least in his stage presence. American shock rock acts like Alice Cooper, who ceremoniously killed himself on stage each night, and the costumed and makeup-painted rock band Kiss more aptly fulfill the rock theater category. The folk musician of the 60s morphed into the larger and still present singer-songwriter, a category which encompasses talented artists that write and perform their own songs with sometimes more personal content than past artists. Singer-songwriters like James Taylor from the American Carolinas, who recorded initially on the Beatles' New Apple Records label, Carole King, who had been successful writing hits for other past artists, now emerged recording and performing her own songs, and Joni Mitchell from Canada and part of a thriving Laurel Canyon music scene in the Hollywood, California hills, all competed for listeners' attention.